Kyle, there's a million names out there that we could discuss. So we could be here for 5 hours, and I'm sure you've reviewed most of those names, if not all of them, and many more that I couldn't come up with. But seem to be three that are notably of interest. Whether there's any legitimacy to interest, I'm going to bring them up anyway because there are direct ties to the university or at least the conference. So you got Deion Sanders.
Yes. Yeah.
Then we also have Lane Kiffin. And then I would throw Hugh Freeze into that mix as being three names that people like to discuss because there is some cachet to each one of them for different reasons. So review those three and how much you would support those individuals in regards. I know that you would support them, but in regards to the pursuit of them as a head coach, and then how reasonable you think that those selections would be.
No, I don't think you're getting off base at all there with those three. I think those are the obvious three top candidates for the time being. We went through this 2 years ago, and it changed by the day who was the lead candidate 2 years ago. So in 5 minutes of us getting done doing this here, it could absolutely change. Lane Kiffin kind of just dismissed when he was asked today on the SEC teleconference, as you would expect. Coach Prime has been a little bit more playful in how he's not necessarily expressed interest, but acknowledged that Auburn has called, which you would expect them to do. Hugh Freeze is just kind of, everyone's assuming he's going to get a look. The question is for me, does Chris Roberts, president of Auburn, and Commissioner Greg Sankey of the SEC want him back in the SEC? I think really, honestly, for him to even get a look at Auburn, both of those things have to be checked off and that you get the stamp of approval to even be interviewed. So I think he's a legitimate candidate. I just don't know that he's going to pass those two check marks to even get considered. Deion Sanders, boy, what a character, what a charismatic guy. You understand his allure for fans. You understand his allure for potential recruits and for the players that are currently here. My concern is whether or not he would be a guy that would stick around long term, because I can guarantee you we'll probably have, in some areas at least, some very significant success, probably in the recruiting realm, the transfer portal realm, with just his name, his charisma being attached to the program. And mind you, with a brand new football facility about to open up. That is just a win in marketing right there that you can't deny. So I'm not even dismissing Deion Sanders. My concern is, will he stay long enough before someone else comes calling or he gets another idea? Lane Kiffin, to me, all the other candidates, even outside of the two I've already mentioned, he checks off a box that each of those offer in terms of a pro on why you would consider him. So to me, I think he's the more well-rounded candidate. I'm not necessarily saying that I want him as the head coach. I will obviously support him, but I think he checks off the most boxes when you start going down a checklist of what you need as an Auburn football team. The question is, though, will Auburn pay up? That's the big question for me.
The head coach is obviously the guy that's front and center. He's the guy that's visible at 2:30 Central Time on CBS when, Penn State's in town, all of that. So that's the name and the face that everybody attaches to it. The athletics director, you got to be an Auburn supporter, typically a supporter of that team, that school, to understand and be understanding of that person's importance and also their impact. So John Cohen comes in from Mississippi State. Your thoughts about his credentials and what he brings?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when that quickly took a turn. John Hartwell of Utah State seemed to be the one that was in the lead for the longest time, having some Auburn ties, actually. This kind of took a life of its own very quickly over the last week and weekend. There was even some speculation it may happen on the weekend, but as we know, it probably were some other things that needed to be attended to before we officially announced the AD. I was a little skeptical at first, but the more I read into his resume and the more I think about what he provides in a lot of other areas outside of football, I think it's a win. It's maybe not the big hire, not that there is a really big, sexy hire in terms of ADs these days. We more get excited about the football coaches or just coaches in general. I do think that this is one that's going to be very beneficial for baseball in particular, being very closely connected with Butch Thompson, our head coach. Bruce has signed off, which is basically who, other than the president and the administration that's there now, you need Bruce's approval for everything. And this is a guy with SEC experience. So when we're talking about football, college football focused on this show, this is a guy that is going to know what it takes to be successful it's Mississippi State. Sure, they're not one of the powers. They have a good few years every once in a while. Mike Leach is entertaining, but he at least knows what to look for and what is not going to work in this conference. So I have a lot of high hopes for him in this search, whether that's he chooses to keep Cadillac Williams in the role, which I don't plan on that happening, but boy, would my little Auburn heart love it. Or if he decides to go one of these popular routes, or someone that's maybe further down the list that we're not talking about right now.
Yeah, the culture in the SEC, the importance of football can't be overstated. Also, they love their baseball at Mississippi State and have a long, illustrious history there. And that would attract Auburn baseball fans as well, because the history is there with that program. Two, Kyle Loomis, E2C Network. There you see the YouTube standing and also the Twitter handle. So follow Kyle and the E2C Network right there. Kyle, when we lean on Auburn and we need an answer, we go to you. So we appreciate your contribution, sir.
Of course, I thank you so much for having me on again.